to order the meeting of March 27th. Tonight, we're going to hear from the schools, both the elementary schools and King Philip. In a change of plans, we're actually going to hear from KP first. So I'd like to ask the KP team to come to the table, if you could, so you can be on mic and a little bit on camera. While they do that, I will take a roll call. Jason Craig.
Here.
Rob Garrity.
Here.
Brian Beachkowski.
Here.
Mike G.
Here.
Moses here.
Here.
Joyce Terrio.
Here.
And we are expecting another member, but he's not here yet. Oh, there he is. Jonathan Hurwitz, are you here?
Just joined here.
There we go. Thank you.
Connect to the screen.
If you join the Zoom meeting, I can give you permission to share.
Oh, okay. Larry, if you do join the Zoom meeting, if you wouldn't mind shutting your camera off, because it creates a little bit, and mute yourself because it sets up an echo.
Yep.
Should I say here? Doesn't matter. Do you want to be waiting until I think I got it?
Okay. I'd like to ask the KP group to introduce themselves. Jim Lehan, who's the chairman of the KP School Committee, is here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here as chair of the King Philip School Committee. Larry Azar is our finance director, and I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce our newest superintendent, Richard Drolet, Dr. Richard Drolet. He has completed his first year, and it has been an exemplary year. We're thrilled to have him. And we do have an interesting budget cycle this year, which we'll go in detail, but it's been an unexpected, challenging year, I guess is the best way to say it. We discovered some discrepancies from the prior budget that we had to overcome and will be reflected in this coming budget so that we don't compound the problem for future years. But our finance director, Mr. Azar, will go through that in detail, but I really want to turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Drolet.
Sure. Hi, my name is Rich Drolet. Nice to meet you all. Thank you for having me. And for anyone at home, the handout, which is just a 3 to 4 page superintendent's budget narrative, is available on our website under superintendent tab. So my name is Rich Drolet. I'm very happy and excited and proud to be the new King Philip superintendent. It's really an exemplary district, and I plan to do everything I can to keep it that way and to also make improvements as needed over the years. Just to share a little bit about me personally, in terms of my family. I've been married to my high school sweetheart for 25 years, and I have 3 kids, one in college, one in high school, and one in middle school. Professionally, I've started working with kids when I was in high school in the summer as a camp counselor. I was a teacher, assistant principal, curriculum director, assistant superintendent, and this is my 6th year as superintendent, first in KP. Previously, I was in CCONC for 5 years. And just my core values and beliefs with education are just to have respect and respect differences, to be collegial, try to communicate well. All means all, to serve all of our students, and also to focus on what's important, which is in the classroom between the teachers and the students. So I'll just give a brief overview of the budget summary, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Azar to go over some of the details and the numbers, and his to project onto the screen as well. His presentation is also, PowerPoint is also on our website. But I just want to start by sharing that this budget, although it's a difficult budget and we'll have to make some overall reductions to staff, we are still trying to do good things. So we're planning a new program at our high school to meet the needs, a specialized program for some students with significant social and emotional needs. And that's a new program we'll use with existing staff to create at our high school. Also, we're in the middle, we just started a strategic planning process, so our strategic plan happens to run out this year. So we'll create a new 5-year strategic plan, and we've had focus groups last week with students, parents, staff, town leaders, and school committee. And now I have a 18 to 20 member strategic planning committee where people are volunteering their time, and we'll meet 6 or 7 times. And by June or July at the latest, hopefully the school committee will approve a new strategic plan that will guide our work in the years to come. It'll inform my goals as superintendent, school committee goals, administrator goals under me as superintendent, teacher goals under administrators, and excited to get almost 1,000 people took a survey we sent out, 500 of them students. So we'll be looking at all of that data as well as some other internal data as well as part of the plan. But in terms of the FY25 budget, just to summarize the 4-page document in front of you, we are receiving very little Chapter 70 state funding monies, just an additional $30 per student for an increase of $58,860. Our enrollment went up 37 students this year. It had dropped in previous years. So just by maintaining a level service budget, we would have faced a 10.62% overall increase for FY25 compared to FY24. And planning in our principles, if we were to advocate for a true needs-based budget, it would have been more like 13% or 12.99%. To get such a large increase down to a reasonable overall increase from our budget to be 4.33%, unfortunately, we have to propose some reductions, and our leadership team is laboring over decisions, final decisions. And then we've also looked at adjusting line items. I've gone through over 1,000 line items to make adjustments as needed there prior to any staff reductions. And I just need to reiterate, anytime we have to make reductions, there is an impact, but our goal is to minimize any effect on students. We're still going to offer all of our high-quality courses, programs, and extracurriculars. Although we don't want to propose any layoffs due to budgetary constraints, some positions will no longer be funded. And final decisions will be strategic to have the least detrimental impact on student learning and programming. And we're not in a position to announce final staffing decisions yet due to factors associated with contractual agreements. And it wouldn't be fair to staff to publish or talk about things publicly until we meet with all staff impacted. But conversations are beginning to have now with impacted staff and will happen through June and also perhaps into the summer with some potential recalls. But in terms of non-position related savings or reductions, we did utilize some transportation reimbursement reserve funds, some professional development cost savings. One reduction I will talk about, you'll see it says 19.5 position reductions. The 0.5 is assistant superintendent, so that full-time position will go to a 0.5, and we're actually going to partner with Plainville Elementary Schools to share an assistant superintendent for next year. Besides that, about half or about 10 will be through attrition. We offered an early retirement incentive. Some people that are leaving, we will just not fill those positions. But besides that, the other half of the reductions, there will be about 10 layoffs.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Are they all teachers, or are they?
No.
Okay.
So across all units, administration, custodial staff, teacher assistants, secretarial staff, and teachers, so not all teachers. And thank you, that's a good clarifying question and point. My document on page 2 talks about the new therapeutic program at our high school to try to meet the needs of some students in district who might otherwise require an out-of-district placement. And this is also not just to best meet legal obligations and least restrictive environment, but also moral obligations. And we believe this new program can generate savings that produce a long-term benefit for the district fiscally, but also what's best for kids. As it relates to the budget, we will, one of the long-term goals you'll probably see through our strategic plan is to create more in-district programming to meet the needs of some of our students with IEPs. So we do want to start to invest in in-district programming to keep students in district and also potentially bring students back to district. I said page 2 previously, sorry, that was page 3 about the new programming. And then lastly, page 3 into page 4, technology and digital learning. All incoming 7th graders will continue to get a new Chromebook, and but some tools might be, so we're looking at some other tools that we might be eliminated in terms of technology but still meet the needs of learning. And then looking forward to FY26 and beyond, one positive thing, Mr. Lehan was with me. I have pursued to become a member of the Tech Collaborative, so that should save us. They won't admit us KP until FY26, but that should save us a good $100,000 starting in FY26 and moving forward to be a in-district member for the Tech Special Education Collaborative. Currently, we're just a member of the BICO Collaborative, but we're looking to be a member of Tech as well, as some of our students go to those out-of-district programs. Also, I believe on the town warrant will be an article. Our school committee's already voted about to create a capital stabilization account for the King Philip Regional Schools. So although it likely will not happen this year, to have any turnback or surplus monies to go into that reserve account, because we are looking at a deficit for this year, which we would have to take additional monies out of our E&D account. We are looking to create, with the town's vote and approval, a capital stabilization account, so that in future years, if we have turnback monies, KP, not just coming to the towns, could utilize some monies on some capital improvements, such as replacing the high school turf field. High school tennis courts will need replacing along with the turf field in about 5 years. And then in 2 years, I believe the note is up for the roofs, or for the last 2006 renovation. So perhaps that will be a time we'll start to talk about capital needs with the towns to do the next major capital improvements, such as new roofs. And so that's just an overview, a summary of the FY25 budget. And I'll turn it over to, if anyone has any questions at any time, feel free about the narrative. And Mr. Azer is going to go over a lot more of the numbers. Sure.
Yeah, could I
Go ahead,
yeah, so just to clarify, the assistant superintendent, so both towns have one, and so...
No, so KP is reducing a 0.5, and Plainville is the one of the 3 towns that does not currently have a curriculum director or assistant superintendent. Okay. So they plan to add a 0.5, and we're going to share to make that a full-time position. So it'll be 0.5 KP, 0.5 Plainville Elementary for assistant superintendent / curriculum director position.
So, but currently KP has a 0.5.
No, currently KP has a full-time 1.0, and that's an administration cut.
Right.
And so besides salary, with also some professional development savings, you know, we had to shave about $2 million from our budget. That's about $100,000 right there between salary and line items under the assistant superintendent.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
And that's the 0.5 reduction.
Yeah, right.
Can I ask a quick question? In your discussion of the capital budget, you said you were going to bring your capital improvement list to all the town meetings. Are you talking about this spring town meeting, or?
Yeah, I mean, the list is, we're reluctant to give numbers, but we could talk about items that Mr. Azer, myself, and the director, our facilities manager, have met and talked about future capital improvement needs. So that will be given an overview as part of creating a stabilization fund of what monies would go towards in the future.
Okay. So it's related to the stabilization fund article?
Correct.
Basically. All right.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Correct.
We do our capital issues are usually dealt with at our fall town meeting, but it makes perfect sense to me.
This is just to create the fund.
Okay.
And one thing not in here, which it's in one of Mr. Azer's slides, I will share, we have about 1.3 million in E&D. However, for the past, next year's budget is built on taking 400,000 out of E&D to go towards next year's budget. That's been a practice that's been done here in years past. This year, though, we're running a deficit. So as of right now, you know, FY24, we're at about a $400,000 to $500,000 deficit. So if we have to dip into E&D to cover that deficit for FY24, let's say $500,000, and then we're paying $400,000 for FY25's budget from E&D, that's about $900,000 out of the 1.3 million. So we are utilizing a lot of E&D. We have applied for additional funding in the emergency circuit breaker funding from the state because our special education out-of-district costs went up greater than 25% this year. We have applied for emergency relief, and we should be receiving, hopefully in the form of a few $100,000 in emergency circuit breaker relief there as well. So we're hoping the end of year deficit, we won't have to take that much out of E&D. However, that's remains to be seen.
And I'm going to ask you, because I always forget, because I think of it as free cash, but we also have some new members. E&D stands for?
Is it excess and deficiency?
Yes. So that's essentially what we call free cash on our side, basis. Yeah.
Yeah, if a
thank
boiler
you.
were to go or an emergency.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question? Okay. Mr. Azar.
I'm going to pass out his presentation.
Could I ask a quick question, please?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry, Jonathan. The light is shining
That's right.
on your...
Sorry. I know, and I appreciate you're not able to share specifics of what roles might be impacted, but are you able, or at least have you already calculated what these reductions in teacher positions is going to do to average class size? Do you happen to have those figures of where we're at currently and what you expect average class size to be following the reductions?
It will have very little impact, if at all. Some of the positions, I think most of the positions are non-classroom positions. There will be a few. However, it will not impact class sizes. If I were to give a number, maybe on average 1. High school, for example, has the largest class sizes at our high school is in the history and social studies department, which are high 20s on average. We will not be reducing any positions in that department, for example. So there might only be, because there's other positions that are non-teaching staff that will be reduced, such as maybe counseling, custodial. I gave the example of the .5 assistant superintendent. So there very little impact on class sizes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Go ahead. It's all yours, Larry.
I'll turn it over to
Okay, do you want to throw the PowerPoint up? Or what?
You just need to share your screen.
Okay.
One thing I'll share too with reductions, there's no reductions to things like AP classes or extracurricular activities or anything like that.
Excuse me. Sorry, I'm all verklempt over here. So what I have here is the entire budget presentation that we gave to the school committee, but I'm not going to go through it all. It's all in your packet, though. So if there are things that I skip over that you want to ask questions on, by all means, we can do that. Just let me know which slide you have a question on, and we can, by all means, go back to that. So I'll just skip to the intro here. The major principle that we try to hold to when we put together the budget is that we put together a budget that is both responsible and realistic. And a responsible budget we define is that it addresses the needs of students based on data, research, and mutually agreed upon goals. And it meets those needs through the most efficient use of existing and additional resources. So this is our calendar. The school committee just adopted the budget a week and a half ago. That's what we presented to the towns. Of course, as you know, your town meeting is in the middle of May, and then Plainville and Rentham come up the first week of June.
Can I stop you there real quick?
Yep.
Our meeting is on the 15th this year, not on the 4th. It's on a Wednesday, not a Tuesday, so
Oh, okay.
make sure you don't show up on the Tuesday.
Better to have it this way than the other way around.
That's a good point. You'll
Better
be-
come a night early than a night late.
Exactly.
All right. Our enrollment, as Dr. Drolet said, the enrollment increased this year. And this, you see the percent distribution there. The percent distribution is important, as you know, because the amount of the budget that is over the minimum contribution is allocated based on the percent enrollment. And Norfolk's percent increased 0.38% from last year. Plainville's went up almost a full percentage point, and Brenham's went down more than a percentage point, obviously because it's a zero-sum game. So keep that in the back of your mind, and a little bit of foreshadowing when we get to the assessment part of this. So first we'll talk about our revenue, because as you know, or for those who don't know, as a regional school district, we are essentially our own municipality. So we have to put together a balanced budget, balancing the revenue and the expenses. So just to refresh, this is our current year budget, our revenue by source. As you can see, the assessments from the towns make up almost 76% of the town budget. When I first got here 7 years ago, that number was about 72, 73%. That number has slowly crept up. Reason being is because the state aid, as I'll show you in a couple of slides, has slowly crept down. Just our revenue by source projections for next year, our district revenue, we show going up slightly. Our Medicaid reimbursements, which we started about 5 years ago, have been coming in very strongly. The FY22 number is inflated because that came from federal COVID money. That was a one-time infusion. That's why that's not to be repeated. On state aid, again, as the superintendent said, our Chapter 70, we're only expecting to get the $30 per pupil right now. That typically increases somewhat as we go through the legislative process. However, right now, our budget is based on the governor's budget, so we can't predict or rely on anything to come in after that. Transportation reimbursement, we have a slight increase on that, and charter tuition, a slight increase on that as well. However, that's one of those good news, bad news scenarios, because the reason your charter tuition reimbursement goes up is because your tuition has gone up, and the reason you get more reimbursement is because that's the way the program works, is when your tuition goes up, they give you more reimbursement to sort of mitigate the increase.
I'll just share too, if we were to get additional state aid between now and after the end of the school year into the summer, it would go towards positions, maintaining, saving positions.
Right, exactly. So here's just a back view of the transportation reimbursements. Again, it is underfunded every year by usually an average of a couple $100,000. As the superintendent said, here's our E&D. Right now it's at 3.26% of our budget. It can go up to 5%, but we're well under that. So our total revenue, 4.33% increase. Obviously, that matches the expenses. As I mentioned, the state aid has dropped about 3% in the last 7 years as a percent of the total budget. In dollar amounts, that represents about $1 million. So that's about $1 million more that has been transferred to the towns through in terms of assessments, on top of just the year-to-year increase that you naturally get. It's about $1 million shifted on top of that. So for expenses, as the superintendent said, just our level service budget due to those cost increases was about 10.6%. As we do every year, we ask our department heads and our team leaders and our administrators to ask for new things that they feel are needed to grow the district. Those requests, unfortunately, we're not able to fund this year, but they're there. And that's what it was cost to be about 13%. This is the major issue here is right now we're in a position we have to cut about $2.4 million out of the budget. Again, 19.5 positions through either attrition or layoff. We have a couple positions that are currently vacant we're not going to fill. We have some salaries that are currently in our operating budget that we will move to revolving funds. We have all of our administrators, including the two of us sitting here, all our directors, our principals, our assistant principals. We're all going to be taking an unpaid 1-week furlough next year. We're all giving up a 1-week salary next year to help offset some of this deficit. We're taking some additional money out of our transportation reimbursement fund, reducing instructional supplies and services, moving some other things to revolving funds, and reducing technology and facilities expenses. And again, as the superintendent said, any additional funds that come in, any additional savings that are realized will go towards that first line to reduce the number of staff reductions. So when we take that in, that's where we get to the 4.33% increase. That's what it looks like broken down by the lines, and the more detailed line item is at the back of your packet if you want to see it, see that. We talked about charter school enrollment. KP, the green line, has been gone up a bit the last couple of years. The blue line is the elementary combined number. Norfolk, out of the 3 towns, has been much lower than the other 2, and the trend is heading down. It peaked during COVID, but seems to be coming back down, which is obviously good.
Can you go back to that real
Yep,
quick?
sure.
I need to understand what you're saying here. So the green line is KP eligible students that are going to charter schools, and the blue line
Yes.
is what?
The blue line is the 3 elementary districts combined.
Okay. So it's not a direct impact on you guys, it's just
Not-
you're putting it there
No,
for
but
potential
If you look at the-
future impacts.
Yeah, if you look at the line, one of our
Okay.
under budgeted expenses this year was charter, and you'll see how it went up for us.
Right.
And maybe that's a sign of the elementary increase now arriving to us.
Okay. Yeah.
Hopefully, with the blue line going down, once that
Right.
arrives to
Okay.
us, our charter would go
Thank you.
down as well.
Thank you.
Exactly. So, okay. School choice, seeing a similar trend for KP, has gone up the last couple of years, in particular to virtual schools. And the reason we call it the virtual schools is because the school choice tuition to virtual schools is almost twice as much as it is to traditional school choice. There are 2 virtual schools in the state right now, and a third one was just approved yesterday by the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. And for some unknown reason, the tuition for that one is going to be $5,000 more than the 2 current virtual schools. Trying to figure out why that is. I've got a message into somebody I know who works in that area, and that could be an impact down the road. Anyway, the assessment calculations, this is all in the packet. I think most people are familiar, but again, happy to answer questions. The foundation enrollment, Norfolk's went up a little bit, Plainville's went up more, and Rentham went down a couple of kids. The municipal revenue growth factor comes from the Department of Revenue. It estimates a community's ability to fund education. It's used as a multiplier in the formula. Plainville's was much higher, again, foreshadowing. Norfolk and Rentham were lower and very close to each other. The required local contributions, again, you see here Norfolk on a little bit of an upward trajectory the last couple of years. That contributed to your large increase last year, obviously. So if we look at, these are the major factors that go into the formula. Norfolk's foundation enrollment went up, middle of the 3 towns. The growth factor was middle of the 3 towns. The required contribution, middle of the pack, and percentage enrollment increase, middle of the pack. So we see where this is going. I'm not going to go through the calculation of the actual assessments, but here you see these are the assessments. Norfolk's assessment going up 3.42%. Plainville going up 10.82. Rentham actually going down a tiny fraction of a percent. It's rare, but it's possible. And so as you can see, based on Norfolk's increase, middle of the pack. capital assessments are allocated based on the enrollment percent, and so these are where they fall for next year. This is the historical trend for the last number of years. You can see Norfolk had that one outlier year last year, but otherwise has been very low. Again, we have tried to put together a budget that is both responsible and realistic. And happy to take any questions. And again, if there's something on the slide we skip past, just let us know which slide it is and we'll hop back to it.
Could you unshare, so, or actually, no, we have to pop back. I'll ask if any of the members have any questions. Brian?
My question's on slide 20. Basically, it's with the level service budget being a 10% increase, it's all grouped together as one amount. What is the actual, like, what's the relative driver? I could pull out transportation from another slide, but that was like 400K. What is driving the increase of level service?
Yeah, so the main drivers, let's see, if you look, I did try to, in a way without calling out, I'll try to find in my narrative. The main drivers is out-of-district special education cost increases, and charter school increases, and school choice out increases, which includes the virtual school. In addition, we're responsible for our own healthcare 5% increase, so which is the average of the past 5 to 7 years. So those are the main drivers, which were under budgeted for this FY24, which is why we have the deficit for this year. Trying to correct things that internally, I've enacted procedures in place to make sure that all of those numbers are precise. And we're, April, May, June, if we were to have students come back or not be reduction in out-of-district placements, for example, there would be monies there that we could use to retain positions. However, it's volatile where additional students could go out. So this budget is based in real time, but those are the main drivers. Then, of course, there's contractual increases, I think about $900,000. And are there any major ones that I didn't include?
No, that's basically what you said.
There is the slide, yes, there, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the lines that are higher than the normal range are the tuition lines.
It would be helpful to have like a relative order of magnitude of those differences, like.
Yeah, so I think off the top of my head, out-of-district special education went from 3.7 to 5.1 million. That's 1.4 million.
Yeah.
Charter, I think was it 400,000 increase? So though in order, it would be out-of-district special education, charter, school choice out, and then maybe healthcare or transportation. But
Yeah,
maybe it's in the order, and
right.
then, or contractual as well. But so those are the main drivers.
Go ahead, Mike. Actually, can I ask a follow-up on?
I'm following up, yeah.
Do you have, what?
I'm going to follow up too, but that's
Okay.
yeah.
How often do you have in school year transfers in and out? I was surprised that you said that. A lot, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Often, yeah, and there has been an increase since COVID and returning
Yeah.
to school full-time. So often,
Okay.
weekly.
Really? And they
monthly.
sometimes come back.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
and we're trying to build an in-district program, which to keep kids in district, and also that could be a cost savings.
Great. Thank you. Mike, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the special education out-of-district tuition increases, is that a combination of the tuition going up?
Yeah.
And also placements going up?
Correct. So I think, placements went up by about 10 students, and at the same time, tuitions went up. I think statewide last year was between 10 to 15%, and
Right,
across the
big
board
increase,
increase. And, those increases annually are about 4 or 5% on average, but last year into this year was a astronomical, I think largest increase ever perhaps. And then we did have additional students go out, about 10.
So the changes you're making, and without, going into detail, address both of those issues or just one or the other? Do you know what I mean?
Well, there's nothing we can do to lower the cost.
Right.
From the
Right.
placements. That's non-negotiable. But there's things we can do to keep students in district
Right,
or
okay.
to have there be fewer students out of district. But there's nothing you can do about a student who moves in
Right, okay.
to your
Right.
school from another town.
All right, thank you.
Jonathan or Joyce, do you have any questions?
Nothing for me.
Rob?
So on slide 23 with the budget reductions, does the staff reduction number include fringe? So, what?
That's just salary.
So you'll have a fringe reduction too, right?
To some degree, but it's hard to estimate because we don't know specifically which staff is going to go. And so therefore, we don't know which of those people have benefits or not. And yeah, plus some of those people that are leaving by attrition, that are retirees, may still have health care with the district.
But they'll move into retired.
But retirees still get health. Retirees up to the age of 65 until they go to Medicare
Yeah.
still have the same health benefits.
Yeah, I was just looking at the line items at the back.
Yeah.
And you got your retired employees, insurance goes down. But
Well,
you go to active employee insurance going up 8%.
yeah, that's just based on the projected number of people that we have, but there's also other people outside of the staff reductions who may resign and they get replaced. You may have somebody who resigns that doesn't have insurance. We replace them with somebody who takes the insurance, or somebody who is currently employed and stays employed, who gets married, who goes from an individual plan to a
Right.
family plan. So all those things are,
But you got a general back of the envelope fringe rate.
we do, but it's nearly impossible to predict the impact of what it's going to be. I mean, as we get closer to actually identifying who the people are, and we know whether or not they have our health insurance or not, we could probably make an estimation of what that impact would be. And if it shows a reduction and we can save a position or two because of that, then that's something we would definitely look at. But right now, it would be very tough to do. I mean, there are years, even when we don't do, in a year like this, it wouldn't surprise me if we onboarded 10 new employees over the summer, just because of regular turnover. And that could be 10 new employees on health insurance, entirely separate of all these budget cuts. So it's
Right, but they're replacing 10 employees that had health insurance too.
not necessarily.
Not necessarily, but very few employees, I'm guessing, don't take. If your fringe rate is like 10, which is about a third of what I've seen in other places, that's 130,000, which is a significant amount of money when you're talking about a $2.5 million hole you're filling. I'm just saying,
No, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying, we have about 2/3 of our employees are on our insurance. But because we haven't specifically finalized who these 19 and a half people are, we know that we have a pretty good idea of what the positions are, but because we haven't nailed down who the people are, we can't definitively say what impact it's going to have on the fringe. When we finally get to that point, yeah, we can make that calculation and do that, and
which will be after the towns have voted.
right, but we can still so if it adds up to whatever amount of money, and if it can save a position, so if we then only have to reduce 18 and a half, like Dr. Droulet said, then that's something we would
Yeah,
definitely want to look at.
any monies saved are going towards reducing layoffs. So we had an initial healthcare number, for example, that was 9%. We went back and forth and advocated to lower that, and thankfully they lowered that. But if that wasn't, so we then, the 19.5 number used to be 23.5. Okay, if there's any savings through less insurance cost, it'll go towards retaining positions, you know.
Okay.
So, like I said, some recalls might be over the summer as well. But to your point, that's something that I'll take a look at, and we'll try to calculate based on individuals and plans and savings with healthcare.
It adds up.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions? Brian?
Can you talk just a little bit more about the surprise and the underestimation of those out-of-district placements this year? And you said putting new processes in place to identify that earlier. Can you just, what was the impact in the FY24 budget of that? And
So one example I could give is, today's March 27th, and our budget was approved by the school committee last week and will be approved by the towns, hopefully May and June. Between, April, May, June, if any students go out of district, then that's going to be an increase. In FY25, that's not seen here.
right.
A move-in, a student who might go from a
So-
out-of-district
But I think
placement.
No, my question's more particular. Yeah, this year you said,
Surprises, so was
Right.
that what happened?
what is the total amount of surprise from
May
budgeted
of
last year to
and the beginning
actuals
of
as of this date?
Oh, so in terms of students?
You said there's a unbudgeted expense that was caught you by surprise this year by out-of-district placement, and you put in a new process to
Yes.
identify that earlier.
Yeah, so the new
Tell me
process-
about that.
The new process internally is, I myself, as the superintendent, along with the finance director, communication through special education director, people services director, and also the out-of-district coordinator who, on a day-to-day basis, deals with all of our out-of-district students and families' placements, costs of each of the 45 programs and placements, transportation. So anytime there's a change with anything related to a student placement or a transportation cost, there's a communication generated, and then there's a follow-up between Mr. Azar and myself adjusting the budget live at that time, rather than waiting to reconcile on a.
And that reconciliation that happened this year was 400,000, $1 million? Like, how big was that delta?
In the middle, about 700,000.
And that had accumulated over the course of 6 months of the FY until it was
I mean,
discovered?
I started July 1, so between July 1 and December. However,
Yeah.
it was really also included last April, May, June.
Yeah, okay,
So,
all right,
yeah.
thank you.
So that's, something that won't happen moving forward with the new kind of internal procedures in place and making live adjustments in the budget as it relates to those costs.
Right, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, gentlemen. And we know where Larry lives if we have any follow-up questions. I didn't mean that sounded way too threatening. We have his email address. That might be a better way of saying it.
You know where I work.
We have his work email address, so.
Not far, but, and also I'm happy to meet with anyone one-on-one, sit down with anyone I still am in the process of meeting new people, and part of my entry plan is to meet as many people as possible and to build relationships, to move things forward and to be transparent and to try to do good things for the students and the staff.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Did notice that Plainville and Rentham are having their town meetings on the same day, so good luck to them.
Yeah, we have to split up.
Divide and conquer as we usually do. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
While we shuffle tables here, I'm going to run out real quick. I'll be right back. If you folks want to come to the table when Harry gets himself disconnected,
I'm gonna go find some water.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to you guys? Where do you want us? I just feel like I have my back to this screen that I'm trying to speak to.
Anywhere is fine.
Yeah, that is-
As long as there's a microphone so it can be
All
recorded.
right, it'll be on that screen as well, if that's helpful.
How about right in the middle?
In the middle.
Stand right there.
Happy to, wherever you want us.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much, and thanks for your patience. We will now, when you're ready, hear from the Norfolk Public Schools.
All right, great. So thanks for having us tonight.
Sure.
I've met most of you. I'm Ingrid Alardi. I'm the superintendent in the Norfolk Elementary. We have two school committee members, our budget subcommittee with us tonight, Lisa Sheldon and Lauren Bides. And then Vicki Saldana is passing things out to the audience, and she is our curriculum assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction. So in the interest of time, I know we were told to try to keep to 15 minutes, so I'm not going to go through all of our budget slides. I did send, Dave, I think, did you get the email that has
I
the
did, and I
link?
forwarded it to folks,
Great.
so.
So if you want to see the whole presentation, we had our budget hearing a couple of weeks ago, so you can see the live full presentation and the feedback and comments from the audience. I will go talk through a few slides that I think probably are of interest to the advisory board. But before I do, I just wanted to say, in general, we've presented many times to the board, so I think you're all aware of what our process looks like. I think, as Rich said earlier, when we are building a budget, we really concentrate on trying to build a budget that best supports the needs of our students, has the highest return for them academically, and supports the whole child development. In difficult years, when we have to make reductions like we do this year, we try to mitigate those and make sure that we're making reductions that will have the least impact on the quality and rigor of instruction that we provide. This was a tough year for every department in Norfolk. I know you heard from other town departments last week, and you'll hear from the overall about the overall town budget, I think, in the coming weeks. In the past, when I've come to speak to you, I've talked about how it really takes about 3%, all other things being equal, just to open the doors in September the way that you close in June. So it's generally 3% to provide level services, and that is if conditions remain constant. That hasn't been the case in the last 10 years in education. In Norfolk, we have been faced with steadily growing enrollment. We've talked about that at the advisory board before. There is some data in the slides at the end of the presentation. I know there were questions about enrollment. I'm happy to speak to that after we talk about the budget. But we have had the pressure of growing enrollment every year since 2015. We had one year that it dipped post-COVID. New students come with new costs, and so the district has been absorbing those additional costs. I think there's some very important other global conditions that have changed the cost of educating children in general. One thing that I know that we've talked about at greater length at other presentations is in Massachusetts, as well as across the country, there has been a dramatic increase in the mental health, social, emotional, and behavioral health needs of children. That started pre-pandemic. It's been increasing since 2013. At this current time, the estimates are that between 1 in 3 and 1 in 4 students will have experienced a behavioral health challenge that requires formal intervention by the time they are 18. That has had a dramatic impact on how we program for students at schools. It has a critical impact on why we keep class sizes small so that students can have strong relationships with teachers and with other adults within the school community. We've brought in additional mental health staff to support that. So that's a changing condition. Additionally, academic learning standards have become increasingly rigorous, and there has been a regular need to keep updating curriculum materials to keep them so that they're aligned with best practice in the research. And new materials that we receive are designed to be delivered in different ways. We do not teach the core critical content areas like ELA or math in a whole class setting any longer. Teachers do a tremendous amount of data collection and assessment. They look at individual students' needs. They formulate small groups. Most instruction, there may be an overview lesson that's provided, but most instruction happens in small groups with a teacher and 3 to 4 students with like instructional needs. So the delivery of instructions change. So when you're looking at overall budget asks, 3%, you're not going to see that very often. When I looked out and reached out to other regional communities, all of our neighboring communities, you're looking at budget asks coming in at 7.5%, 6.2%, 5.9%. I only found one in 18 communities that had a budget request that is even close to 3%. So I think the cost of education has changed, and the way that we provide services to students has changed. That said, going into fiscal 2025, a level service budget for the Norfolk Public Schools, if we were to open again the way that we're expecting to close in June, would have been an 8.5% increase. We recognize that the town cannot fund that. As you heard from KP, they're looking at pretty difficult financial circumstances and have had to make cuts. We have done the same, and we will go through what the reductions are going to look like at the elementary level in order to balance the budget and come forward with a request that is fiscally responsible, allows us to maintain appropriate programs for students, and can be funded by the town. The 3 primary budget drivers for the fiscal 25 for us, one is we have to adopt a new English language arts curriculum. That is a one-time cost. When we purchase a new program, it will provide materials for 5 years worth of instruction. So we would love to see that be a capital item, but the timing doesn't align with the Norfolk capital schedule. We brought that request forward last year, and we ended up having to cut it from the budget because of the availability of funds. So we really have to move forward with a new program implementation this year. The cost of a new ELA program is $250,000, which would be 2%, about 2% on our overall budget. Additionally, we have some increasing costs for special education, about $300,000 in additional costs, as Rich talked about, and I won't go in depth, but out-of-district placements are generally increasing tuition rates by between 10 and 14%. Transportation costs are going up. We have changing needs of students, and as a public education system, we are mandated by law and also ethically to provide appropriate programming for all of our students that meets their needs, which is what we are committed to doing. So there is an increase in special education costs. There's inflation on the expense side of the budget, and then also we have to meet contractual obligations. Within all of our schools, we are seeing reasonable contract increases between 2 and 2.75% COLA. The Norfolk teachers are at 2.75. Non-union members are looking at a 2%. They're very reasonable, appropriate cost of living adjustments. The Norfolk schools, like all schools across the state, receive Chapter 70 funding. That funding for the elementary level goes directly to the town. It doesn't come directly to us like it would for a regional school, and the town uses Chapter 70 funds to help offset the cost of education. Chapter 70 has been flat, and it has not kept up with inflation over time. It funds about 25% of the Norfolk, just under 25% of the Norfolk budget. It is, Chapter 70 funding is based on your prior year's enrollment, so it doesn't keep up with enrollment growth. What we will receive this year will be based on what we had enrolled last year, and it lags behind. The other thing that I think is important is recognizing all of these additional costs districts are facing. The state and federal government have put out a lot of grant fundings to help people access and supplement their operating budget. Unfortunately, we are not a community that is prioritized for funding. It's primarily going to urban districts with high percentages, over 40% of students who are economically disadvantaged, schools that are in consistently underperforming or in state takeover. So we have applied for many, many supplemental grants, and we are turned down because we don't meet the priority considerations. So all of that said, it was a tough financial year. I'll walk through just the specific budget slides of the presentation so I can show you where our cuts and reductions are going to be and what we've done to try to create some cost-saving efforts. And I I don't know, can I share my screen now? How do I go? I have to jump into the Zoom meeting?
Yes.
Oh, you think I'll let me in?
As soon as you show up.
I'm not in. Want me to log out and log in again?
You haven't shown up that you're trying to log in yet.
Okay.
So,
Let me just try one more time. Hold on. You can find the slides in your packet while I try to see if I can get us back online. I bumped out. Erica, can you resend the link possibly? Because now it's dropped out.
You're making a good case for the tech support position.
I am making an excellent case for that. I might turn this over to Vicki and I can start talking about the slides while she can
I
help
just
get
resent it
this.
to your email.
All right. And it had me as in, and then it's not showing up. All right, it's not coming through. Can you? Yeah. Should come through from her. There we go. Just open it again if you can. And then will you share the that right there? All right, so if you, starting at slide 17, actually you can jump right to 18.
Recording in progress.
I'll talk through the budget drivers. So our budget request for 2025 is a 3.17% increase over fiscal '24. It's about $478,000 and change. That request will allow us to meet the contractual obligations we have for salary and COLA increases. It does increase and adjust the special education budget to accommodate the increase in transportation and tuitions. It allows us to continue to provide. We are not adding any staff in this budget. It allows us to continue to maintain our current staffing for mental health. It allows us to maintain school class sizes that are within the school policy limit. They are not on the low end or at the high end, but they are within the policy limit. And it allows us to partially fund the ELA adoption. We have only budgeted for half of the cost of the ELA adoption, and that is because of financial constraints on the town side. What we've done for this year is we've implemented a budget freeze. We are not filling any open positions at this time, and we are not approving any expenses other than critical urgent expenses. We are hoping through that budget freeze to generate $100,000 in savings to offset the balance of the ELA adoption. We are also continuing to pursue some grant funding. If we are not able to do that, we may have to look at further reductions because the ELA adoption has to happen and it is a priority. But we are trying creatively this year through a budget freeze to allow us to purchase some of the program this year and the balance next year. The overall budget changes, you can just see the COLA, the 2% COLA for teachers is about $479,000. Other contractual benefits, sick leave buyback, things like that are about $32,000. All of our other staff, we're budgeting a 2% cost of living increase. That is at $186,000 on approximately. We do have 2 teacher retirements. We always back the savings that we expect out of the retirements out of the budget. So we are going to see about almost $80,000 in savings in retirement. So the net change for just contractual obligations is $619,000, which again is probably close to 5% before we talk about anything else. Recognizing again that the town can't fund an 8% in this current fiscal climate, we are making staffing reductions. We have identified the positions that we are eliminating at this point, and we will be at the elementary level cutting a full-time technology integration teacher, who we could have used tonight, as you pointed out. That position provides instruction on the digital learning standards and pre-engineering across the grades. We have 2 positions, one at the Freeman Kennedy and one at the H. Olive Day. We will now be going to 1 district position. Vicki will talk in a little bit about how that's going to change programming. We are also reducing a full-time math specialist. That person's retired. We will not be refilling that position next year. We are reducing the library assistants that we have in both school libraries. It's a 0.4 position in each. It's a little bit different. It's actually a 0.3 and a 0.5. But those 2 positions that support our school libraries will be eliminated. We are also cutting an additional 2.3 paraprofessional positions and are finalizing an additional 0.3 professional reductions at this time. Other adjustments we're making, we are shifting part of a custodial salary to our food service revolving account. Because the state is now funding free lunch, we have a balance in that account. So for the short term, we are going to be able to offset that salary. Our custodians spend a good portion of the day in the cafeteria, so it's an appropriate transfer. Since the time of the budget, we were notified of one additional teacher retirement, additional funds. So with the salary savings and the reductions we're talking about, it's a total of $296,000 that will help bring that increased cost down. On the expense side, as we talked about, the ELA curriculum adoptions are priority. It's the estimates we've gotten from vendors are about $250,000 to fund the full adoption. We're budgeting to offset half of the cost in the fiscal '25 budget. FK and HOD, their service lines are up slightly. It's primarily cost inflation for paper, custodial supplies, things like that. Special education instructional services is up. That's again tuition and materials that we've talked about by about $300,000. The circuit breaker program is a reimbursement program from the state that provides reimbursement the following fiscal year for high cost special education to help kind of support the municipalities in managing those costs. So we will be applying last year's circuit breaker reimbursement of about $89,000 to reduce that. Transportation, we are in the process of bidding a new transportation contract, so this is an estimate based on what we're seeing in the market now of what the transportation contract will increase, about $34,000. We have made significant cuts in the district office supplies as well as facility supplies, so you see reductions in both those lines. And then overall, the technology network, there are some increasing costs there. So the net change on the expense side is about $388,000. Again, with the staffing reductions, just the COLA changes and the expense changes bring us over what the town can fund. So we are looking at some additional revenue to apply to the budget to bring the overall budget cost down. We are recommending applying two sources of revenue. The first is from a special education tuition account. We have a regional partnership with Rentham and Plainville. When we have students with unique specialized needs, if we don't have an appropriate peer group within the district or we don't have an appropriate program, we always try to place students in our partner schools, either Rentham or Plainville first, prior to a collaborative. One reason is it's in the best interest of kids because they remain with the peers that they will move on to the King Philip Regional with. It also saves us some revenue. We charge less than BICO would for our students that come in. We have a balance in our account because we have had some students from Rentham and Plainville being served in Norfolk. That account has 108. You're seeing the full balance of that account and needs to be applied towards special education costs. So we will be applying that to staffing costs for the budget for fiscal '25. And we also, several years ago, brought a warrant article before this board to establish a special education stabilization fund. That fund was for the purpose of offsetting increased unexpected special education costs. In order to access that fund, it requires a vote of the school committee and the select board, and we have a meeting scheduled tentatively for April 23rd for that vote. We're recommending using half of the funds that are in that. It's only $250,000. We don't want to deplete below that because that's one placement, and if we have an unexpected placement, we want to be able to fund and appropriately pay for that without having to go to town meeting for an additional appropriation, just to protect the privacy and the integrity of programming for those families.
Can I ask something here?
Please do.
Yeah. So how does money go into that again?
So we established that account, and I think it was in 2020. At that time, we had some unspent budget funds remaining, where at KP that could go into your emergency and deficiency. We typically return it to the town.
Yeah.
We put together a warrant article to allow us to not return the money that year and to use that funding to start a special ed stabilization fund. The town matched the school's contribution that year, and so the whole fund was established in 2020 with $250,000. We have since not put money in
More
that.
hasn't gone in. And there's not a
Nothing more has
process.
gone in because we
Okay.
haven't had the revenue to put in.
Right,
You're
okay.
allowed to put more in than that, but we haven't been able to. So that fund has been available since 2020 and has not been used.
Okay, thanks.
Can I ask a related question then?
You may.
So the tuition account,
Yep.
what happens if you didn't spend that?
That's a revolving account
Okay,
that could
all right.
carry from year to year, but
Okay.
really it should be applied within a reasonable period of time.
Right.
Yeah.
that could potentially, going forward, be a source? Is it a source for
We have
stabilization?
no current, no, we have no current students that are tuitioned into the district.
Okay, all right.
So there's no, both
that's
of
just a
these are
one-time- it's a
one-time
one-time.
revenue, and it will be gone at the end. And as I know when you talk to the town and we talk about using free cash, there is always a risk. We are using money to support a budget that is not available next year, which is going to leave a significant budget gap, and we will have to grapple with that as we're looking at next year's budget.
And in addition to this, it's the 89,000 of circuit breaker funding
Yeah.
that will also not be available next year.
We will receive circuit breaker funding next year based on the current students that we have that are considered high cost, and that's a formula the state that we submit a circuit breaker claim annually. And so what that amount looks like depends on how many students we have that are above the threshold the state establishes for costs. But
Okay.
we have circuit breaker every year. The amount changes based on your population.
Okay.
Cost savings, I think we've really been vigilant about trying to seek opportunities for cost savings. Over the last 10 years, we've built outstanding, strong, internal, in-district specialized programs. We serve almost all of our students. There's very few students that are not receiving services within the school district. We also have worked with the town to collaborate on sharing positions. We have a shared facilities director, a shared deputy director, a shared custodial position, which saves money for both the town and the schools. Last year, we regionalized our school lunch program, and we worked with Rentham and Plainville, and we now share one regional food service director who operates all three districts, so that generates quite a bit of savings for us, too. We also cost share professional development. There's a lot of annual mandated professional development that all districts are required to provide, as well as shared initiatives. So all of our elementary schools are looking at new ELA programs. The science of teaching reading is common, and we can find opportunities to share the costs of outside presenters. And then last, we shared the wellness director position with KP. Dot, I don't know if you've met her, but she does tremendous amounts of grant writing. She brings a lot of revenue into the district. We do have a grant that she secured for us that will bring in $30,000 to support the salary of one of our only school social worker. Competitive grants, we have several in process, several that have been declined because we don't meet that criteria. But we were able to get a funding for an ELL CPAC or LPAC, which means it's a consortium for parents of English language learners to provide feedback to the schools around programming, and we did that in partnership. Vicki wrote that in partnership with, is KP in that too? Or just
Yes,
the-
no, it's
all
it's
four regional
all four
districts?
Yeah. We've been able to provide like tutoring services for our L students too, that the grant covered, so that was a really great.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fun. So we've had more success when we've written grants as a region. That's how we got the health director position, but only certain grants you can write as a consortium. We were able to receive DOT brought in funding for Care Solace, which is a mental health referral service that allows students and families that are seeking outside counseling. It's a service that will help them find an available provider that is taking new clients. That's a really tough thing to navigate right now, and this has been a real gift for our families. We're in the process of working with the town on a municipal cybersecurity grant, which would bring in $100,000 of funding to schools and town to strengthen technology infrastructure and protect us from cyber threats. And then we also have an early literacy grant that we were pursuing for professional development to support our programming. These are all pending. We continue to look for grants. If anyone hears of grants, send them. We do a lot of grant writing, and we're happy to consider that. I won't go in depth on the next slides. These are familiar to you. They just show the breakdown of the budget. The majority of our budget is instruction, and very little bit, only 6.9% of the entire budget is discretionary, not fixed costs. So salary, transportation, tuition, those are all fixed costs. And that makes up like 94% of or 93% of our overall budget. I think from there, I'll skip the class size, and we've talked about that. I'm just going to let Vicki talk a little bit about the impact of the changes to the budget of the cut positions and what that's going to look like. And then happy to go back and talk about anything you might have questions on. Vicki, I just wanted to, just before you jump in, Miriam Goodwin, who is our business manager, is joined virtually. I didn't see her because I didn't see the screen, but
She's
I see
on
her
there.
there. So now, just to introduce Marion Wave, so you know who's on the audience. Marion was our business consultant, and she will help support questions at the end as well.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. So I think that we really worked together through numerous meetings to really try to make sure that our 2025 proposed budget supports core instruction needs for all of our students. But as we kind of mentioned before, there have been some financial shortfalls that will negatively impact some district programs and services. And the three significant positions is that we have to reduce a math specialist instruction, and what a math specialist and literacy specialists do, they really work with teachers. They provide a lot of coaching and support for teachers because our teachers are, the demand, as mentioned before, continues to increase on what the state is requiring, how instruction is delivered. So before, schooling was more like you had a generalist, you had to know a little bit about everything, but now more and more they're facing demands on teachers to really understand the very unique needs of all the different curriculum areas that they're responsible for. So math and literacy specialists kind of come and support because that is their areas of expertise. They have to get certified in those areas, and they really understand the progression of how students learn mathematics and reading and writing, starting kindergarten and through 6th grade. So another big part of their job is also they provide support for our most neediest students in the area of mathematics in this instance. So we are replacing the math specialist with a paraprofessional to make sure that we at least are able to meet our student needs, but the paraprofessional does not bring in the level of expertise that a certified math teacher would when they work with students, you know. So another area that we are also reducing is our technology integration specialists. So as you know, in this developing world that we have, it's a digital age. Engineering, you're hearing a lot about students being able to understand how to interact and live in a world that is full of media, you know. So we do a lot of lessons around STEM. We were able, through grants, our integration specialists able to procure like a 3D printer, so students can really start applying those skills that are going to really help support them as they move on to middle school and high school, which are core skills as well. So at this time, we've always had 2 integration specialists because we do have a district of a little under 1,000 students. So now we're going to have to reduce that position to 1 integration specialist, and obviously that's going to reduce our capacity of how this person's going to be able to support these core standards and support our teachers. And also a library media specialist. We are lucky to have librarians, and we have a great library program, and they do a lot more than just provide students with books. They provide core lessons. They really do support our literacy initiatives as well. And they've always had support to help them because it's a big job. The librarians are also are responsible for cataloging the books and managing circulation. Like, they do like the full job of a librarian. So having a support staff was really kind of helped them to be able to meet all the demands. But we are reducing the assistance for both librarians. We're going to try to call on volunteers and try to kind of support them as best we can that way, but it will still affect kind of the integrity of the program. And again, it's more like capacity, you know, like if you that they're able to provide.
Because our library media specialists in both districts, in both schools, are certified licensed teachers. And so they do, when students go to library, they have direct lessons that address core literacy standards as well as research standards. And that's a big portion of their job. But now they're going to have to assume the circulation responsibilities as well as just the library management. So it does impact that way.
Can I jump in just for a quick second?
Sure.
For clarification, just for me?
Yeah.
So the staffing reductions that you're making, are they just merely frozen, or are they being completely cut and eliminated from your budget and in the future?
They're being eliminated from the budget. Our hope is if, when we get to the next slide, we'll talk about priorities for restoration, as Rich had talked about. If there's additional revenue, they would be the priority, would be to restore those lost positions. Our hope is that as we move forward, there's more revenue to support operating budgets, and that would be our priority. So we hope these are short-term reductions, but they are being cut from the budget as a whole.
Thank you.
So kind of leading into our next slide, actually, that was a great segue. So obviously, if there's, we really are hoping to be able to restore the technology integration teacher, math specialist, and the library assistants in the future, and also the 2.3 paraprofessional staff. That is also part of our reduction in our budget. And there's a point to clerical support for Freeman Kennedy. Like I said, our schools are large size. We have over 500 students, you know, so even though we have 2 buildings, the buildings are significant, yeah.
So that, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
about that? That's basically 1 day a week, the way I read
Which?
point 2.
Yeah.
Right.
But what they do is they come in a couple of hours each day to
Oh, okay. I was going to
return
say, are you
books.
cutting
and
somebody by that, or are you eliminating someone who comes in a couple hours a day?
a couple of hours a day. So they come in a couple of hours a day, return all the books, recatalog things, reshelve things, and then the library
Oh, no, I meant the
teacher.
clerical support position, the
The
point.
point to clerical.
That was reduced. So we had a full-time assistant. We had 2 secretaries at the Freeman. We've reduced it to 1.6. That would be bringing that person back up.
And then one of what we've really hoped is to be able to actually increase our math support, because as you know, like we're still in the recovery phases. Our students still need extra support, especially in the areas of mathematics. And so one of the things that we're hoping that a future restoration would not only restore a math specialist, but also be able to bring us an extra math paraprofessional in addition to that, to be able to adequately support the needs of our students. Another area that we have critical unfunded staffing needs that we've had now for, I think, a couple of years we've been requesting is clerical support for our HR and business office. So we have...
That's been always.
Always?
Since
Okay.
I came in 2012.
I'm a little bit newer,
Yeah.
so I think that one of the reason we really want to keep kind of emphasizing this is we're one of the largest employees in the town, and we have an HR director who's also our payroll person. So they're essentially doing 2 jobs. And
we don't have any clerical support. So
Right.
we have one person really doing almost
like
3 jobs.
right? And kind of seeing the need, as you know, with health insurance alone, the question, you know what I mean? Like the support and the HR piece is large enough for a staff as large as our schools are to bring in the payroll. Also another layer to that
payroll
position is becoming unsustainable. We also have a .6 special education team chair, and an average town of ours that has the special ed kind of support that we offer usually has 2 full-time team chairs, and we have a .6. So we are significantly understaffed in that area as well. We kind of talked about the other couple positions, our math specialists, technology support. Also, our special education building substitute was a position that we used to have that we have eliminated, and that person basically brings coverage to teachers when they have to attend an IEP meeting. So
Or teachers out sick.
or teachers out sick, because at this time we have to pull other staff members from their jobs and ask them to cover the classrooms. So which interrupts, you know, schooling. And then a special education teacher and evaluator, our Director of Student Services has an overwhelming job, I think, and usually, like I said, a district the size that has the programs that we were able to provide does usually have a little bit more additional staff and additional layers. And then the new thing that the state, and I think one of the things that we kind of talked about too, that the state continuously increases the demands, and I think that all our colleagues can kind of echo that, and what they're asking schools to do. So every year, the standards that they're asking us to cover, the type of education that they're asking us to provide, and they're coming and they're looking at it. They're like, well, how are you addressing this need? How are you addressing that need? You know, so schools are held very highly accountable to be able to meet the needs, and which is a good thing. We're trying to provide the best education, but it makes it really difficult when you do not have the necessary layers that you need to be able to provide the supports that they're asking. So one of the most recent changes that they've done is the state finally updated our health and PE standards from 1999, which was great. We've been waiting for it, but they're very robust, and there is a huge component of health education that is now expected for our PE teachers to be able to somehow encumber, you know, and that is kind of like our next task. So we're kind of hoping that in future budget, we'll be able to offer health education teachers as well, because for all the
In
reasons
addition to
that
the
I
PE
mentioned.
teachers.
Yeah.
Yes.
keep the PE teachers and
Right,
that.
right, because it would be, because before.
Norfolk used to have a health education teacher and a whole health education program. It was cut way back in 2000, I think 9 or 10, and it's never been able to be restored, so.
Did you have a question on that last line?
I had a question actually on the HR issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many FTEs do you have, like all in with the .2s and .3s? And
Oh, well over 200.
so
Probably closer to almost 250.
Yeah, 250, I'll be wrong.
270.
you do use a payroll company,
And then
I'm expecting.
No, we do the payroll.
Okay.
Our HR director calculates hours, submits the payroll.
You've been audited because this
We
is
are
a
audited
segregation of
annually.
duties problem. I'm not saying,
Yep.
I'm saying your argument to us should be, we demand to have another person because this is a segregation of duties problem, which any audit would say you can't have this.
Well, we're audited annually by an independent auditor for all of our financial reporting. We have our HR director, we do, everything is processed through Harper's payroll, which is the town system as well. But she has to verify employees' hours, she has to upload that, and manage all of that. And we've been advocating for quite some time for support. We are looking, I think, next year, we're going to engage in some conversations with the town about, again, looking at potential for shared services.
Yeah.
But it is really tough to operate. Those are two really demanding jobs without any clerical support. But there's multiple checks and services. So she processes the payroll, the town reviews, the town finance department also reviews the payroll before it's submitted. So there's a lot of checks and balances on that. And we've never been cited through any of the independent auditors on any of the budget issues.
I think when Rob used the word audit, he meant from a sort of a business operations perspective rather than a numbers perspective. And I think, well, I mean,
Both.
your
it's both.
comment was, it shouldn't work this way in an auditor.
It's a dangerous way to work because even, not with bad actors, right? I'm not saying anyone's a bad actor. Even with bad actors, you're going to turn up just mistakes. People stay on the payroll 2 weeks too long. And when you have 200 FTEs, that's
I don't disagree.
it's a large exposure.
It's a really demanding. Now, again, we do work with the town finance department who reviews everything before it gets submitted. So there are checks and balances, but the workload is enormous for one individual.
You are a more cyclical business. It's not
Yes.
like, you have people leaving every month.
No,
But-
it's majority salaried employees, with the exception of substitutes who come in periodically, and we have different hours for that. But most people are full-time or part-time employees with a regular operating hourly schedule.
I think you really should talk to the town about trying to get some.
Yeah, we've
shared
started that conversation, and there's been some shifts in positions, so.
I think the last part is just, we already talked about the ELA adoption cost, and we're really hoping that we'll be able to do a full adoption, because if we have to break it up into 2 years, we have a 5-year cycle that we're also responsible for. So every 5 years, we have to review our curriculum, and the state's like, you have to use these high-quality curriculums that we are now giving you, they give us now specific, curriculums that we have to use. So our next cycle is math. And so for us to be able to keep up with that 5-year cycle, we need to be able to do full adoptions when they come. So if we split into 2 years, it'll be like a trickle effect. Eliminating.
Cost efficient, because
Yeah.
then you're not providing the
Right.
PE all at one time.
Yeah,
for
and then you have
implementation.
some grades
Yeah.
implementing, others not. So, and eliminating band fees, we have an award-winning band program that we're very proud of, I think, as a town, and we would love to be able to offer this opportunity to all students.
For free.
For free, and I know that has been, kind of request that's been, I think, on a docket for a while. And then just the professional development funding, I'm really very thankful for the partnerships that we have with Rentham, Plainville, and KP, where being able to cost share a lot of our PDs. But because we all, I think, function with a very limited professional development budget, and it does, there is a cost to being able to train our teachers, because we want them to be able to be up to date in all the pedagogical practices, and, we want to be able to provide them the training that they need to be able to keep up with the changes and the demands.
A couple questions on that. On that issue, would the $25,000 end up being part of the shared PED that you're doing, or how
No,
would
so
that
when you
work?
look at our district's overall professional development budget, it's significantly lower than like communities. So we have a
Including Larentham and Plainville would be part.
I think I believe, maybe not than Plainville, I'm quite sure we're lower in our operating budget for PD than Rentham. And when you look at our other comparison communities. So we stretch our PD funding as much as we can by cost sharing, but we are not able to bring in as many consultants as we'd like. The sustainability of some of our programming is limited by the available revenue. So that's something that we would like to grow, but it's just not feasible to bring it forward at this time.
And then, just a curiosity, what are the band fees now?
So in order to enroll in the band program, beginner or an advanced band, parents pay a fee. It's the only for-cost program in the lower elementary schools. And that fee, I think it's like $250 for advanced band that they pay in addition to the rental fee, offsets the cost of the band salary, band director's salary.
It's been a long time since my kids were in band, so in fourth, or whatever it is, fourth grade, whenever they start, it's not advanced band.
No,
Is it
beginner
advanced
band has a fee too, but we don't collect the beginner band fee until January, and it's a little bit lower because some people enroll and then drop out. My own two children were not successful at the instruments they desperately tried to play, so we build that flexibility in for beginner band.
Thank you.
But there is a fee for that too.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
Questions that you have?
That's we're at the end.
And Miriam is here if you have other questions for her as well. We're happy to answer them. Enrollment data is in here. You know.
Yep. I have a question about the ELA program.
Yep.
And I'll look around when I'm done this, but you mentioned that you'd hoped that it would be funded through capital. And what makes it a capital program is you're investing in textbooks and things like that?
And it's a one-time expense.
Okay.
So we had, again, we did the review last year. We were hoping to do the adoption last year.
Right.
We had to cut it. The town has already appropriated capital for this fiscal year, and then they'll consider new capital requests next November.
Right.
Norfolk does it in the fall.
Yep.
We have to purchase an ELO program this spring because we have to provide the materials to teachers over the summer, and we have to do all the PD front-loaded, and it has to be ready to hit the ground in September.
So
it's not possible for it to come forward.
That was my question
Yeah.
about the capital, is it going to be something we'll be dealing with in November?
No,
The
we're
other
going to
half?
try to fund
Other half of it?
We're going to try to fund the other half of it by the budget freeze we instituted this year, where we put a budget freeze in place. We are not filling open positions. We put the budget freeze in place February 1st. We're only approving essential funding, essential purchases right now, and we're hoping to generate some savings through that. Whatever we can whatever we save through the budget freeze will help offset that cost, and then the school committee may have to have another meeting and make further reductions to that, because we can't wait till November for capital. And the town already has a long-term capital plan that has funds allocated accordingly.
You participate, I don't have it in front of me, you participate in that long-term capital planning process, right?
Yeah, and we do have some other capital needs. We weren't anticipating the budget shortfall this year that we had to reduce. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions? Brian?
I have one maybe for KP as well. There's been a lot of talk of working with the other towns in the district and collaborating between KP and the town districts. A couple of years ago, there was discussion of a strong superintendent to bring together that relationship even more formally. What are your thoughts as the
regional superintendent?
Yeah.
It's something that was explored at different points in the history of the four towns. I can tell you that model is not really very effective, and in a lot of places they're trying to dissolve the regional superintendency for several reasons. One, you have within Norfolk, Plainville, Rentham, and KP 4 different teachers' unions with 4 different contracts that are negotiated separately with different terms and conditions. You have 4 different school committees. So I actually worked for a number of years in Boxford, and that's part of Boxford, Middleton, Topsfield. They had one superintendent who had 11 unions to negotiate with, 6 school committees. It was an undoable job, and it really didn't generate savings because that position became primarily a negotiator. Then they had to hire another level of multiple assistant superintendents for different domains, finance, special education. So it really isn't a cost savings, and you have very different interests from different towns as to how those dollars are spent at the elementary level between the three towns. So I know that they looked at it. I believe, based on the research, there wasn't really a cost incentive to do it. You have different school start times. It's not a great model from my experience, and I don't think there's a huge return. In contrast, I do think it's critical that the four superintendents work together and share resources and services. So we do meet. I spent most of the day with her today because we do meet and talk about where we can overlap in programming, where we can share grant opportunities. We have Dot Pearl, who works for all four of us, and we share initiatives that way. I do think we've really tried to have the curriculum directors make sure we're strong in vertical planning so that the curriculum is sequential and that students are prepared equally entering into KP. So I think that partnership's strong, but I don't think you'd see much of a return on trying to, and I don't know who you'd hire. I don't think there's a lot of people that want to be in 14 different school committees meetings and just negotiate. So I know that in Boxford that was really tough. They had to look at restructuring to try to make the position appealing, and then they had difficulty filling that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Rob, did you have your, you're just holding your pen up, sorry.
That's a cue for.
I didn't, I saw it out of the corner of my eye. Jonathan or Joyce, do you guys have any questions?
I brought data for Jonathan, and I'll leave it with you guys. Because Jonathan often asks, when we're looking at per pupil spending comparisons around district, how that relates to achievement. So I do have that for you. I will
Can you email
hand it
that?
out.
You can hand it, Jonathan's not here, but could you email that as well?
I can email it as well.
Great.
Again, there's different conditions in each town, so you can't say that this is a correlation. It is not causation. But you can see that the towns with the highest per pupil spending do generally have the highest achievement. The towns with the lowest per pupil spending are at the bottom in terms of achievement. There's layers of support that districts have. Southborough, Concord have coaches, tutoring, multiple things that we are not funding. But I brought this primarily because I'm often asked for it, and I thought it was better to have it, so I'll
Thank
pass
you.
it around.
No, that's great.
And I will email it as well.
So I think one really helpful thing on per pupil spending comparisons is just getting granular about instruction, for instance. Because, for instance, the town covers some field costs for you folks that in another town would be part of the school budget, not the municipal budget.
Well, we have to report all of the funds that we receive from the town for anything in our end-of-year report, and that goes into the per pupil factor. So, for example, when you asked a question to Rich earlier about the benefits. For the elementary district, we pay salary, the town pays benefits. We have to get from the town, when we do our end-of-year report, they have to account for all the benefit funds that they contributed to our budget, and that gets reported. Any facilities, things that they pay for, we report, and that is in the per pupil calculations.
The student profiles data will then show a bigger budget than what you're going to show at town meeting because it's going to include all that other stuff?
The town budget that you look at will include benefits, and the benefits line includes benefits for school employees. But we report that when we do the per pupil comparison, so it is considered in that number.
So the state
That's
tries
how
to
the
be
state
apples to apples.
standardizes what's considered, so that those are apples to apples comparison. They are all in. They also include, per pupil includes state funding and grants, state and federal grant funding.
As a former state employee, I thought that's remarkable.
There is consistency in one place, we
Holy
found,
moly.
so, yeah, that's important.
So if no one else has any questions, I want to thank you, but I wanted to sort of make an overall comment.
Yeah.
I did some back of the envelope math. You're basically having about $234,000 of non-reoccurring funds this year.
Yeah.
Plus you identified $285,000 of critical staff needs that are disappearing this year, which adds up to $520,000.
Yeah.
That's going to be there next year.
Well, the positions that were reduced, if we were to bring them back, that cost would be there.
I understand.
The 250.
But what I'm saying is, if you want to look at that as a structural deficit for your purposes, plus, and we are looking at a budget this year that is being proposed as being balanced, including your 125, but not the 108. That's the way I understand it, is about $1 million of non-reoccurring
Funds.
revenues.
Yeah.
So I'm simply warning you that it's not going to be better next year.
No, and I do think that the town really has to think about this situation. We are, this is not sustainable, the funds that we're using here, and we are expecting continued growth.
Right.
I know that the master plan is looking at how we can bring additional revenue. I know Justin's been looking at options for revenue, but it is a problem. I mean, our level service, as I said when I started, is about 8.5% if we
Right.
were just funding what we have now. And the town does not have that revenue. So we are, I think we're really trying to partner well with the town and to be realistic about what our ask is. KP is using emergency deficiency, you're using free cash, but I agree with you, it is not sustainable. And we need to look at bigger long-term solutions.
So I guess I'm just sort of giving you a heads up that
Yeah.
continuing to cooperate might be you're bailing water out
Yeah.
into another boat.
And I do think that that's going to be, something the school committee has to look at, and at what point do we have to think about a different strategy to fund appropriate educational programs?
Okay. If that's it, thank you very much. I
Thanks for having us.
appreciate your patience at the beginning of the meeting.
No problem.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Bye, Miriam, thank you.
Thank you, Miriam.
Calling in from abroad.
Thank you.
With that, we're on our formal agenda, except for minutes. Ken's not here, so we're not doing minutes tonight. What? Oh, okay. He gets to go on vacation, and you're unhappy with that?
It's going to be like 90 in here. How you doing?
So I will,
Are you done?
unless there's something else someone wants to talk about at this point. Next week, we have the planning board and the follow-up on the CPC stuff. I got an email this week, by the way, that says that the public hearing on the change in use tables is not happening before next Wednesday, which means technically we can't vote on it until after they have their public hearing and close it, which kind of bugs me. I thought that had been resolved. It was resolved for the other issues, but it's not resolved for that. So we will have to deal with that probably at our last meeting. Their public hearing is like the third week of April, right around when we have to finalize our recommendations.
What article are you referring to?
So
It's
one of the
those later
planning board
ones, right?
articles,
Yeah,
they had
right.
some essentially technical corrections to
Yeah,
the change of use
right.
table thing that we did last year.
Right. Oh, that's right.
They need to have a public hearing on that, and we technically can't vote on something that's not closed, or we could, but we may have to change it, and I don't like to do that, so. That will be occurring at our last meeting, which is the 20th,
Our
17th.
17th.
last meeting is the 17th. I did book the room next door for the 24th in case we need
I
it,
think, yeah, okay,
but
that's what I was
the
thinking.
warrant's due to the printer that day, so.
Right.
So we can bring a typewriter in and just bang it out right there, right? Okay. I just want to give folks a heads up on that. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. All in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned. Please shut off the computer or shut off the